Good morning. My name is Harry Manis, M-A-N-I-S. I was drafted in June of 1941 and was discharged in December of 1945. I had a most incredible military experience that very few people would ever equal.
We're going to go into
Here's
that.
part of it.
Okay. And just thank Greenberg for taping this. That's all.
I thank you for inviting me, and I think that you too will be educated after I read or tell you some parts of what I did.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the living history of the veterans of Greenberg. We're honored today to have Harry Manis of the United States Army, Master Sergeant, who served from 1941 to 1945 in the military. Good morning, Harry. How are you?
Good.
Good. I'm glad. Harry, let's go back a little bit before the war broke out in 1941. What work were you doing briefly before the war started?
Yes. I was a copy boy from 1940 to from 1930, and I was made a reporter in 1937. And I was a general assignment reporter. I covered everything you can think of. And one of the assignments I had is relevant to what I'm here for today. In February of 1939, the Jewish organizations had a big rally at Madison Square Garden. And after the rally, the German-American Bund had a contract with the Madison Square Garden to have their followers present at a rally. It took place on George Washington's birthday in 1939. So my editor said to me, Harry, he said, why don't you go up there, get a hold of Fritz Kuhn and find out if he's going to go through with the rally because of all the rumors floating around of bombs being secreted and hidden somewhere in Madison Square Garden. So I went up to his office at 85th Street and 3rd Avenue, one flight up, and there was a security man at the desk who stopped me, and I asked him, is Fritz in? I never referred to him as Herr Kuhn or Mr. Kuhn. I tried to demean him by calling him by his first name to embarrass him in front of his guerrillas, who were with him at all times. So anyway, he said that Herr Kuhn will see me. So I walked in, there was just one desk, and the room was as big as this room right here. And all he had was his own chair and 2 pull-up chairs for guests to sit on. And so when I asked a question about going through the rally, he said, yes, as long as the police will do the job, there will be no problem. And no matter what I asked him, I could never get anything out of him. Finally, I said to myself, this is a waste of time. I stood up, and on the wall of it, right behind his desk, was a framed picture, 8 by 10, which I spotted right away when I came in. So I couldn't get anything out of him. I got up and I said to myself, why is that picture of Adolf Hitler on the wall? And why isn't that picture of President Roosevelt on the wall? Well, you know what happened. From the open door was 2 6'4" gorillas rushing at me with their hands outstretched to choke me. And when Fritz saw that, he jumped up, and with his palms facing everybody, he said, don't touch him, don't touch him, don't touch him. And they stopped just arm's length from where I was standing. I didn't blink an eye. I just looked at them cynically, and they were huffing and puffing because, you know what, everyone would know what they wanted to do.
Harry, let me just give the audience a little background. The German-American Bund was a lobbying group, a civic group in the worst terms possible when I say civic, but of German Americans who joined this organization. Prior to World War II, they held many rallies, but they spewed hate and prejudice not only against Jews, but many other people. And Fritz Kuhn was the chair of that commission. Not commission, but that Bund fund. And after the war broke out, they broke them up and the FBI kept them under surveillance. Let's go back to just before World War II broke out, which was December 7th, 1942, so the audience can get a sense what it meant to live during World War II.
Yeah, but the story about...
Excuse me, December 7th, 1941. Let's get a little background. How much do you think a Coca-Cola cost in 1941?
I don't know.
5 cents. What do you think the average salary was for somebody working in 1941?
Who, working at
Oh,
what?
just an average worker, the average wage.
About $60 to $75, $60 to $75 a week.
Well, it came to about $1,885 a year. And the average home was about $3,500 a year. What a great buy in today's terms. Let me ask you, Harry, when World War II broke out on December 7th, 1941, where were you? Do you remember how you heard about the war?
Of course I do.
Tell us.
I happened to be home.
Okay, were you listening to the radio?
Yes, I was.
Okay, were you with your folks? Who was with you?
Yes, I was. I had an overnight pass. I went to visit my folks.
Okay.
And I was lying down on my bed and listening to the radio, and at 1:36 on CBS, they broke in and they said, I don't know what the exact word was. We have news that Pearl Harbor is under attack. The White House sent out a notice that Pearl Harbor is under attack. Casualties are high, damage is severe, and it's now in progress, and that's all we know at the moment.
How old were you when that
I was in my
announcement-
20s, mid-20s.
Okay, let me ask you, what went through your mind, if you can recall, as a soldier and as a citizen when you heard we were attacked by the Empire of Japan?
Not at all, I expected it.
You expected?
Absolutely.
You felt we were, but wasn't it a surprise to you that it was a sneak attack?
No,
No, you thought that would happen?
that's right. That's what I'm trying to get across to you.
Okay, okay. Now, you were in the service already. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your service experience and what you did in the service?
I had the most unusual job in the United States Army. After I was inducted at Yaphank, I had my basic training at Camp Lee, Virginia, and the most miracle of miracles happened after 3.5 months. Instead of going to Camp Coke, Louisiana, I was sent to Fort Slocum, New York.
Okay.
Fort Slocum is an Army camp which was built before World War I, and it's a staging area. Staging area means that you go to a certain place and you stay there until you're ready to be moved out. So Fort Slocum accommodated about 3,000 men, and I was sent there. And when I arrived at Fort Slocum, a Jewish organization had a representative show up about every 2 weeks, and he would make arrangements for soldiers of the Jewish faith to be dinner guests at the Jewish families from New Rochelle to Greenwich. So this man, whose name was Cindy Lanza, said to me, I made arrangements with the producers of the $64 question. They will pick a soldier from Camp Kilmer to be one of the contestants. Who wants to be it? Nobody wanted to be it, but they knew I was a reporter, so they all jumped up on the chairs and take him, he's a reporter. I won a $64 question, I won a jackpot prize,
What'd you win? How much?
about $80.
Wow, that was big money then.
I would have won more, because when they asked the $64 question, what's the name of the woman in first woman in Congress, and I said Jeanette Rankin of Minnesota, and that won the jackpot prize.
Wow.
Listening to the program, unbeknownst to me, was the executive officer of Camp Kilmer. No, executive officer of Fort Slocum. 2 days later, after I got back from what I was doing, the sergeant at the barracks said, Manus, who the hell is Manus around here? And I said, why? He said, there are 3 messages for you. You to report to post headquarters immediately. Colonel Rutledge is waiting for you. I said, who's Colonel Rutledge? He says, I don't know, but you get there. So I went to post headquarters, and the post building had been emptied, and he was sitting there waiting for me with the secretary. She met me at the door, and when she shook my hand, now I knew why I was there. So I went to see Colonel Rutledge, and he congratulated me. He said it's an honor to have Fort Slocum soldier winning these prizes. And then he said, what I'm telling you is off the record. Whatever you see here is not to be seen, not to be told, not to be discussed with anyone at all. It's top secret. And he's holding a book in his hand, about 3 inches thick, white jacket with 2 black lines on top secret. And he's holding it in his hands. He says, this is something that I have from Army intelligence. And this is what I'm telling you. This is how we're going to operate. And he said, what you hear, I've already explained, is not to be discussed with anyone else. Well, to make a long story short, came Pearl Harbor, and I was shipped out on January 5th, 1942, together with 5 non-commissioned officers from sergeant down, and I made it 6. We got on a truck and we went to Camp Kilmer.
Where is Camp Kilmer located?
Right outside of New Brunswick.
New Jersey.
And when we got there, the place was under construction. They had empty barracks, no roadways whatsoever, and we were the only people in there. We couldn't find anyone, so we found 2 construction workers. He said, there's a cafeteria about a half a mile up the road. Why don't you go there? So the 6 of us with our duffel bags walked in the mud up there, and there was like a little cafeteria where we had our food. And the next day, when we got up, we went and got our breakfast, and I went down to the motor pool and picked up a Jeep. And I got on a Jeep, and I went to town, and I got a road map to the area so I could reconnoiter about it.
Did you spend your $80 yet? Did you spend your $80 yet? Okay, let me, because I know this is all specific, but I want to try to focus on the broader picture.
This is not specific. So to make a long story short, I introduced myself to the editor of the New Brunswick News. And when I told him I worked for the Journal American, it's like I came home from a big celebration. And so to make a long story short, I pioneered a public relations policy for the United States Army, which became official, and I brought it with me to show you. Now, if you can read English...
Well, I've learned that a little bit.
Army Service Forces.
Right. Here, let me hold it up and the camera will take a picture. You
my-
want to read it or you want me to?
I'll read it. I'm going to get my glasses.
Okay,
I have 2 of these, incidentally.
okay. Let me show the audience first what it looks like.
It's got the gold seal.
Okay. All right, go ahead. Then we're going to jump to a few other things.
Army Service Forces, Office of the Chief of Transportation, citation for Army Commendation Ribbon. Master Sergeant Harry Manners, Army number, Transportation Corps. He is hereby authorized to wear the Army Commendation Ribbon by direction of the Secretary of War for exceptionally commendatory service as a member of Public Relations Branch, Camp Kilmer, New Jersey, during the period of 15 June 1942 to 15 September 1945 in the successful formulation and execution of public relations policy. The public relations program established under your guidance has served as a model for other installations and was a service of outstanding value for the government. Signed, Edmund H. Levy, Major General, Chief of Transportation, and this is the gold seal.
Thank you. Here, you can put it.
That's not all. There's
Well, wait,
another.
Harry, let me
It's
just,
another one.
I know you have a lot of things. Let me just ask you a few questions, and we'll move on. You can put this back and everything. And I'm sure you're very proud of everything that you received. Did there come a time that you interviewed any celebrities or famous people? Like I see you have a picture here with, and I'd like to show everyone, with Eleanor Roosevelt. Maybe you can tell us the background of how you came to get this picture.
She was always lecturing throughout the United States. And on January 1944, I heard that she was going to be at Rutgers University in New Brunswick. So I was head of the public relations. I had a staff of 7 working for me. And I got my photographer and I said, let's go down to Rutgers and see if we can find her. So we did. I found her and I interviewed her. And I have the interview, incidentally, which I brought with me too. So that's how I found Eleanor Roosevelt, which ran about 40 minutes.
How was she to speak to? Was she pleasant?
She's so gracious, so charming, so pleasant. I can hardly describe it. She was one of the most...
down to earth, would you say?
Very much down to earth. But see, my job at Camp Kilmer, a staging area, is where troops arrive and they stay no more than 3 to 5, maybe 6 days. And from here they get on a train which takes them to Hoboken Terminal, where they get on a ferry which takes them to the city. And they get off the ferry onto the pier into the hold of the ship. Like in this case, in my case, it was the Queen Elizabeth, which I did go overseas on the Queen Elizabeth, incidentally.
Let me ask you, were you the editor of the camp newspaper?
That's right. I was the founder and editor of the camp newspaper.
Now, how many men would be housed at Camp Kilmer?
60,000.
So you had a population of 60,000?
As far as the public is concerned, they don't exist. They only stayed about 3 or 4 days.
No, I understand, but in that time they may have gotten a chance to read the camp newspaper.
Oh, yes. As a matter of fact, I used to get letters from overseas that they missed the paper, send it to them.
Let me ask you, what type of articles, what did you state
Everything
in the
about
newspaper?
the camp.
The camp, or did you have interviews with individual soldiers?
About camp activities.
That were there and everything. Like, for instance, what kind of activities were you talking about?
Anything that relates to the camp, personnel, what they do. And we never at any time acknowledge that an Army organization is stationed at the camp, because only a part of them get a pass to go out.
Now, was any of the newspaper devoted to, like, jokes and things? Because some of the local newspapers had that.
I brought a couple, yeah.
All right, well, we're going to scan them and they'll be part of our records. Now, you mentioned that you went overseas. How long were you overseas and where did you land?
I was untouchable.
Well, that's good. I'm sure a lot of soldiers envy you.
I was untouchable because when I arrived at Camp Kilmer, which I described to you, Colonel Rutledge, who recruited me at Fort Slocum, came there about 2 or 3 weeks later, and he sent for me and he said, have you got a plan? So I looked at him and I said, Colonel, may I be perfectly frank with you? And I startled him. He said, what do you mean? I said, whatever the Army wants you to do is impossible. He said, what do you mean it's impossible? I said, but everybody knows what we are here for. How do they know? I said, because the newspaper editors that I had interviewed, 3 of them, knew all about it. He said, we knew it was going on 4 years ago.
So Camp Kilmer was kept quiet because they were embarking for locations they didn't want anyone to know about. Is that correct?
When they reached Camp Kilmer, the next activity for them was getting on a train and going overseas to combat.
I wanted to ask you a question which I've always found fascinating, Harry. Towards the end of World War II, President Truman made a decision to drop the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and eventually Nagasaki in Japan. I assume the news got out once the bomb was dropped and everyone was hopeful the war would end. Today, some people, history revisionists, feel he didn't have to drop the bomb. I'd like to get your opinion as a newspaper person during the war. What you felt. Did you feel President Truman did the right thing? Your opinion.
Well, it's very hard to answer that. As a humanitarian, I didn't want anyone to get it. But what he did, he saved 1 million lives. That's what he said at the time.
So, do you
They
think...
would have to, after the war was over in Europe, they came back to Kilmer for 80 days with the West Coast ship to the Far East to invade Japan. Because Roosevelt died on April 13th, 1944. I was taking a shower when I found out about the news. 2 days later, the big service was held at Camp Kilmer, and 13,000 soldiers attended it. And so we knew this is what we're in the Army for. Whatever we have to do, we have no choice.
In your eyes, as a reporter, was President Roosevelt very popular during the war with the soldiers and the population in the United States?
Well, there was a lot of people who despised him. As a matter of fact, and that's why it's unfortunate that my time to discuss this is so short, because the continuity of this is all important.
Well, at some point, maybe we'll have another chance to delve into the minutia that I'm sure you remember. What's amazing to me is that after 65 years, you have such a fabulous memory of people's names and occurrences. I want to just say, God bless you. You're very fortunate.
The thing that I'm very proud about is I pioneered a public relations policy as an Army private who became the official policy of the United States Army, approved by military intelligence and the public relations division of the War Department. And I have that on this,
All right,
other one
we'll
here.
Make copies.
So what I did when Colonel Rutledge came, I said to him, and that's not fair for the Army. What the heck does he know about public relations? 3 years in the Philippines, 3 years in Okinawa, 3 years here, 3 years there. What the heck do they know? Nothing. So when he started asking me these questions, I said, Colonel, everybody who lives in this area knows why we're here, why we're doing it, because the newspapers were told about it.
I think you had mentioned that. I want to jump a little bit. When you were not married while you were in the service, were you?
No.
When you were discharged, how did you meet your future wife?
Oh, we had a WAC group that came in 43, and they were all around like pigeons, you know. I never wanted to bother them because I was editor of the camp newspaper, and it was a very prestigious job. And the War Department would contact me, you know, on certain things, and it made the War Department, the military intelligence, mad as hell, because here is an Army private, we should have an officer there.
Well, I really want to see how you met your wife. Did you meet your wife? Was she a WAC?
Oh, it was a blind date.
Oh, it doesn't sound like it was that interesting. All right, I won't delve into it. Let me ask you a question. What type of work did you do after you left the military service?
Well, I find it regrettable that you're not letting me give you the most important thing.
Well, why don't you focus on one issue that's very important to you, and you can explain it to me, because there are many people to be interviewed, and we'll try to give you more time, and you can submit documentation, which we can include. But if you have one thing that, you know, in your mind that's very important, please.
What's very important to me is how I had this new policy adopted by the United States War Department. When I told Colonel Rutledge that it's impossible for top secret here because everybody knows we're here. The War Department had made an announcement about 6 months earlier that they're going to build a Army camp at New Brunswick called Camp Kilmer. It was published by all the newspapers, not only in this area, but all over the world. United Press, Associated Press, they all reported. So the world knew that this information that is official because it was The news was sent out by the United States Army. So it's impossible to be secretive. So I said, but I have a policy. He said, what do you mean you have a policy? I said, an Army soldier has to have a pass. And when he has a pass, he can be interviewed or interrupted by someone who's a spy for a foreign government. And it was very easy because when the news announced that they were going to build a camp, all the Germans, the Japanese, the Italians, and even the British all sent their spies around the area to be ready when the troops start to arrive so they can get whatever secret information they can. So I said, instead of doing what they've always been done, I said, I would suggest we do this. They get a pass, they go to town, and if a stranger asks them, hey, what out for you? What do you do? Where is it? I said, just tell them this. My name is John Jones, Camp Kilmer, New Jersey. That's it. And so that's how the Army adopted this policy.
That became national policy?
The official policy. I read it to you.
Oh, okay. Very good. That was a great idea.
That became the official policy of the United States Army.
And that's attributable to your...
Right, he says that.
Wow. Let me ask you, because we didn't finish, what type of work did you do after the service?
Well, I made fantastic contacts at Camp Kilmer. Celebrities by a dime of a dozen. They were always there. It meant nothing to me because I was familiar with celebrities from my newspaper days. So I made a contact with a director of MGM who came in and do a film on preparation for going overseas. And he was impressed with what he heard and saw about me, and he insisted that after the war I come out to California and he'll get me on the payroll of MGM. He said, you have a hell of a background here that the industry could use. So that's what I did.
Wow,
I got married, I got a car, and it took me 10 days to drive to California. 2 blowouts, and I almost went over the hill, but I got there with a bride.
Well, it sounds like you've led a very interesting life. This interview, as among the others, are going to be shown to the students, the children of our community. What message from your experiences in serving our country would you like to share with the children?
Well, I think it's regrettable that they have very little interest in what their ancestors did during World War II. And so they say, so what, you know? And it's so my purpose now, and I've been working on this, I've been asked many, many times to do a book on this, and I've always held back for a very good reason. And I won't tell you the reason, but I will when I finish. I would have embarrassed the Army considerably. And what I did, I prevented a scandal of monumental proportions from taking place at Camp Kilmer, which came to my attention. Because if I told it to the commanding officer, the first thing they would do is send the Inspector General up from Washington, who investigates these charges, and he's to put on active duty, but he's not going to be active in the operation for running the camp that he had been. And I was very upset at that because this man was a West Point graduate, and after all of these years to be so humiliated by what was taking place was a little too much to spare.
Harry, I thank you for your story, and I urge you, if there are things you'd like to submit, we would scan it so we can make copies, maybe put it in, maybe even your award and everything, just to copy it. That's up to you. And any other information that you can forward to us would be wonderful. I can only speak for myself and my family. I'd like to thank you for your service to the country. But we can shake hands in the meantime.
I went overseas on the Queen Elizabeth, and I have my record here, overseas record too. So it's endless. I could talk a whole week about what I did and what happened, but this is just part of it. But what I wanted to emphasize, that I, as an Army private, changed the way military intelligence operated in maintaining security.
Thank you very much.